Yuta Samura came home from a long day to a fact that turned his life upside down. His dad, Teichi, was remarrying. Over drinks, Teichi had met Akiko, who had taken care of him during one of his drunken escapades. Yuta, surprised but calm, assured his dad of his support, though he asked if Akiko was trustworthy. Teichi confidently said yes and added Yuta would meet her that evening. At the gathering, Yuta met Akiko and her 17-year-old daughter Saki. Akiko apologized for Saki's camera-shy nature. Later, Yuta and Saki talked privately. Saki admitted she'd been worried he might be bad news but felt relieved after meeting him. Yuta joked that villains often wore good masks and Saki agreed, knowing his work ethic. She set a clear boundary. Neither should expect much from the other. Relieved, Yuta said he could finally breathe and they shared a rare moment of mutual understanding. On Sunday, June 7th, Teichi scrambled to make the house spotless for Akiko and Saki's arrival, fretting about his room smelling bad. When they arrived, Yuta welcomed them while Teichi's exaggerated cleaning efforts led to an embarrassing but funny air freshener moment. Yuta showed Saki her room, explaining she could personalize it. She thanked him and shared that she lived in a cramped apartment, often sleeping alone while her mom worked nights. Yuta suggested they treat each other as friends but emphasized setting boundaries. Saki appreciated his straightforwardness, sharing how much she valued honest communication. Yuta helped Saki unpack, earning a rare compliment. While tidying up, he spotted an old cabinet covered in animal stickers and found it oddly charming. When Saki called in closer, he tripped, crashing to the floor. Teichi and Akiko rushed in only to see Yuta tossing something aside in embarrassment, making everyone laugh. Later, Yuta learned Saki was in high school. She didn't mind if he ignored her there, but before he could ask more, his phone rang. At work, Shiori teased him about smelling sweet and guessed he'd been close to someone. When she brought up his new sister, Yuta admitted she was pretty only for Shiori to nudge him about it. With no clue how to act around siblings, Yuta listened to her advice to stay natural. That night, Yuta came home to find Saki in the living room. She apologized for not greeting him, and he noted they seemed to be getting along well. After offering her the first bath, he went to clean up, looking pensive. Saki later struggled with the bathroom's smart controls, gave up in frustration, and headed to bed in total darkness. On June 8th, Yuta woke to his alarm and greeted Saki, who was the only one home. She thanked him for prepping the bath but told him to stop wasting water. Yuta agreed and headed to school, where he noticed Saki alone. Maru pulled him aside, hinting at rumors about Saki's wild side. Blonde hair, piercings, and a tough look made her seem like trouble. There was even talk of her leaving motels. Yuta brushed it off but couldn't ignore how the gossip lingered. Maru teased him about having a bold little sister. Later, Yuta spotted Saki at the tennis club, sitting apart from the others. When he approached, she teased him for acting like a scolding older brother. He explained his concern, mentioning her friend Maya. When Saki asked why he picked tennis, Yuta admitted he avoided team sports, and she agreed, saying she preferred solitude. Despite her bold image, Yuta realized she struggled to fit in and valued her time alone. That evening, Yuta returned home to find Akiko heading out. She mentioned being a bartender, which caught him off guard, then asked him to watch the house. Yuta agreed and started studying. When Saki arrived, she commented on his multitasking and casually asked about part-time jobs, mentioning her goal to earn 10,000 yen. Yuta doubted any job fit Saki's bold goal. When she mentioned sales, his mind jumped to the worst, and he warned her to take care of herself. Saki clarified she wanted her own money, brushing off his concerns. When he asked if she'd say that to Akiko, she confidently said yes, leaving him baffled. Realizing his mistake, he apologized. Saki shrugged it off, explaining how people always misjudge her. Her clothes, she said, were armor against the world's twisted judgment. She pointed out how Akiko, despite her cute demeanor, faced harsh labels for working nights. Society painted everyone unfairly. Brains meant mirrored, looks meant exploitation, and hardworking women were either pitied or scorned. Yuta admitted it wasn't right and Saki agreed, saying her style was her shield. When Yuta asked if it was exhausting, she admitted it, but found it worth proving everyone wrong. They struck a deal. She'd make him soup, and he'd help her find a job. The next morning, Yuta found her making breakfast instead of dinner. She said she always gave more. He praised the meal, but mentioned his preference for fried eggs with soy sauce, surprising her. She promised to remember, marking the start of their partnership. At work, Yuta read a book on money, catching Shiori's attention. He said he wanted to be independent after high school and save money. He also mentioned that his younger sister crowded the house. Shiori thought his sister his age would help and added that it was okay to rely on others sometimes. Yuta found that shady. Shiori joked about sugar daddies, making Yuta nervous, that advised him to rely on family. When Yuta shared this advice with Saki, she supported him but preferred independence. She told him it would be easier if their family were bad people, apologizing for her bluntness before leaving. Later, Yuta found a bag hanging on his doorknob, possibly from Saki. The next day, Yuta prevented a car from hitting Saki, but their relationship felt strained afterward. At the tennis club, Yuta scolded her for not paying attention. Despite the tension, Yuta still worried about her. When it rained, he gave her his umbrella and arrived home soaked. After changing, he found Saki with her friend Maya in the living room. June 11th kicked off with Yuta remembering last night's chaos. Maya had barged in, uninvited, to check out Saki's new crib, tossing out a reminder that they were siblings now. Like hell Yuta cared. Saki couldn't be bothered either, just snagging his phone number and moving on. At breakfast, Akiko's cooking was pure magic and Yuta didn't hold back on enjoying it. Akiko teased that Saki might cook for him someday, but Saki shut it down, saying she'd only bother frying eggs if she felt like it. After Taichi bounced, Yuta tried helping with laundry, but Seki wasn't having it, calling him out for not knowing shit about delicate fabrics. Then Akiko, with zero shame, asked about washing his and Taichi's underwear. Yuta hesitated like a deer in headlights, but eventually gave in. Grabbing his umbrella to head out, Yuta found Saki tagging along. She cracked a joke about him probably liking feminine underwear and being clueless about chores, then threw in a random envy bomb about his perfect eyebrows. On the walk, Saki hit him with a deep one, if he found life a pain with only 2 gender boxes. Yuta, keeping it real, said hell yeah, it was limiting. They ranted about nerdy prejudices and society's shit logic, agreeing that thoughtless actions fuel discrimination. Saki nodded, soaking it in before they both silently made their way to class, the resident loner and the supposed troublemaker. Later, Yuta got caught looking at Saki's underwear. Nervously, he excused himself, saying he had work to do. When he returned, Saki teased him, saying his reaction made her think he might steal something. Yuta admitted he had feared that. Saki apologized, offered him hot chocolate, and joked about whether her underwear had tempted him. Yuta denied it, but admitted the thought had crossed his mind. Saki apologized again and told him that dinner and a bath were ready. On Friday, June 12th, Maya asked Yuta about Saki, noting that she had been feeling down. Later, Yuta checked in with Saki, who said she was okay. At dinner, Yuta mentioned that he still hadn't found a job. Saki felt like she'd be cooking forever, but accepted his help. After dinner, Saki took a bath while Yuta read. Unbeknownst to him, Saki entered his room, touched his cheek, and asked if he'd pay for her body. Shocked, Yuta remembered their past since moving in with Taichi. By June 7th, Saki felt a weight lift after meeting Yuta and realizing he wasn't some shady jerk. By the 8th, he'd already surprised her with more sensibility than she expected. On June 9th, she left a sly note about his fried eggs with soy sauce and casually started cooking for him. The next day, she got caught off guard when Yuta asked about her English lessons, her face heating up like a kid caught skipping class. Maya's visit that day brought a rare spark, and the two traded numbers like besties in the making. On June 11th, Yuta dropped a truth bomb, saying wanting something and doing it were 2 different things. Saki, uneasy, agreed, realizing he saw right through her and it left her feeling exposed. When Yuta bluntly called her out for acting like a despised girl who exploited situations, Saki tried to explain, but he shut her down, saying the problem wasn't him, it was her. Defeated, she admitted her father had spiraled after his business tanked, cruelly accusing her mom of being a seductress luring in clients. Yuta shared his own baggage, how their mom's infidelity had wrecked trust for both him and Taichi. Seki was stunned, especially learning Taichi carried scars too. Both realized their messy pasts didn't have to define them. To lighten the mood, Yuta offered to let her call him Big Brother. Seki laughed it off, deciding to stick with calling him by name. By June 13th, over dinner, Saki felt Yuta's thoughtfulness made him almost too good for the Big Brother title. Spending time with him, she realized calling him that would only make her lean on him, and she refused to let herself become dependent. Apologizing, she stuck with Yuta, staying true to her independent streak even if her feelings were a jumbled mess. On July 16th, Yuta felt like a stranger in his new blended family. His parents had recently married, and he felt distant from his new stepsibling. When his stepsister came home, Yuta asked for help with modern literature. She revealed that she had scored a 38, which didn't surprise him since literature wasn't his strength. Though good in other subjects, Yuta struggled with emotions in stories. She said her low grades meant summer classes unless she passed the makeup exam, which she wanted to avoid because of work. Yuta apologized for not finding her a better job, but she reassured him that she wasn't blaming him. He offered to help with literature, and she agreed. He noticed that her answers were good but incomplete. She admitted that novels were complex and that time was a factor. Yuta apologized and she forgave him. He then asked about her struggle with Sanshiro from Natsume's novel. She didn't understand Sanshiro and Mineko's motivations and didn't know that Sanshiro loved Mineko. He explained Sanshiro's jealousy and she suggested telling Mineko if it bothered him. Yuta said it was hard to be direct, but she didn't understand why people hid their feelings. When Yuta asked if expressing feelings was hard for her, she said she had never been in love. He admitted the same, and they agreed that their lack of experience made literature harder. Yuta remembered Saki's solid history grades and suggested they use that to crush the exam. She was all in, and with Yuta hyping her up, she felt more confident than ever. After the grind, Yuta threw some praise her way. She called him a great teacher and bounced out, leaving Yuta wondering if she was smiling. Next day, Yuta told her to skip cooking and hit the books. When she hesitated, he told her he wanted her to pass, which hit her soft spot. She thanked him and started studying, with Yuta reminding her she didn't know him anything. At school, Maya had a laugh, calling him little brother and bragging about her killer scores. Yuta asked for her help with Saki, and Maya played it cool but sensed there was more to it. She said she thought he was a solid brother. Yuta said Saki didn't need much help, but Maya suggested throwing on some background jams to help study. She gave him a compliment, but he wasn't buying it. Maya joked about cooking for her massive family, but quickly backpedaled. At work, Shiori noticed Yuta was off. He complained about the annoying customers, and she reminded him she had her own complaints. After a customer interrupted, Shiori got real and admitted she hid her true self to avoid being hated. She appreciated Yuta actually getting her. After their shift, Shiori was drained, joking about lingering pain from work and asking Yuta to take care of her. Yuta brushed her off, but she teased him, accusing him of ditching her for someone else. Yuta finally admitted he needed advice about Saki. Shiori was all in and quickly found a track for him. She handed him headphones, letting the calming city and nature sounds under the rain do their thing. Yuta shared the music with his stepsister, who enjoyed it and thanked him. Surprised, she guessed that a coworker had recommended it. Yuta confirmed, adding that they worked closely together. Noticing her distraction, he asked if something was wrong. She complimented the coworker's taste, and Yuta joked about her being scatterbrained, which made his stepsister laugh. She called him interesting. Yuta felt he had taken advantage of the coworker's kindness and wanted to repay her, but his stepsister thanked him and said she would listen tonight. As she headed to her room, Yuta offered to handle the dishes. She wished him good night at her door, and he returned the sentiment. Saturday, July 18th, Yuta had breakfast plans with his dad and Akiko, but she was knocked out, explaining she'd been up late studying and was worried about catching a cold from the AC. Later, Shiori asked about the book A Breach in the Blue Night. She felt bad it hadn't been sent, and there was only one copy left. The book had caught Yuta's eye, especially since it was a movie adaptation about a guy and a girl with an old violin running from some shady figures and jumping through time. Yuta asked if the movie was still showing, but Shiori said summer films had replaced it. She suggested they catch it that night after work, and Yuta agreed, telling his parents. Shiori teased him about being responsible, calling him the adult as she joked about being just out of high school. Yuta fired back, but she just laughed, calling him irresponsible. At the cinema, Shiori suggested Yuta tell his sister. They grabbed snacks, and the movie started with a guy tripping through empty streets, making Shiori laugh. The girl told him to protect the violin, throwing in some comedy. In the final scene, she said she'd done everything, but the guy grabbed her hand, saying she still had something to see. Yuta noticed Shiori was glued to the screen. Afterward, Shiori offered to buy him a drink, teasing that she'd record him opening the vending machine, calling him sweet. Yuta asked what was up, and she casually dropped that she had 6 months to live. Yuta froze, thinking it was a joke, and told her to make the most of it. The mood got awkward, and she quickly switched topics, comparing the view to the park in the movie. She thanked him for the music rec that made Saki happy and asked him to send her regards to his sister before leaving. The next day, Saki asked if Yuta had covered her with a blanket. He admitted he'd recommended A Breach in the Blue Sky. Saki agreed to watch it but remembered to focus on exams. Then she dropped the shocker, asking if he was dating Shiori. Yuta choked on his tea, clarifying that they just shared a love for books. Saki smirked and agreed to read more. At work, Yuta helped Shiori restock. She noticed Saki had recognized her, and Shiori offered help. Saki thanked her and confirmed she was Yuta's sister. Shiori joked that Saki was just as pretty as Yuta had said. Saki asked for a study guide and the novel the movie was based on. Shiori suggested a study session, but Yuta insisted Saki focus on studying. They helped the customer, and Shiori guided Saki to the books. Saki asked for another recommendation, and Yuta agreed. She then asked if being a cashier was tough, and Yuta said it was just the quick interactions that made it hard. Yuta guided Saki to the study guides, and she commented on his apron, which embarrassed him. At checkout, Shiori complimented Yuta for being quick. Saki realized Shiori called him by name and said she called him apprentice. Shiori thanked Saki and handed her the bag. During their break, Shiori told Yuta again that his sister was adorable. Yuta asked if she would keep saying that, and Shiori joked that without her daily dose of young girls, she would wrinkle, though they weren't that far apart in age. She explained that university and high school students were worlds apart, and Yuta had no idea. Shiori then commented on Saki's innocent reactions, making it clear that she was special. Yuta hesitated but insisted that Saki was still his little sister. The scene ended with Saki lying in a mirror before leaving. On Thursday, July 20th, Asamura noticed Yuta seemed off and hinted at rumors about him getting close to Maya. Yuta denied it, but didn't argue when Asamura mentioned Maya calling him little brother. Asamura threw in some romantic advice, and Yuta played along, mostly to shut him up. After school, Maya and Saki dropped by Yuta's house. Saki said Maya was helping her study. Yuta raised an eyebrow, but Maya insisted it was fine, and Saki agreed. Yuta reluctantly let them in, though Saki seemed iffy about the whole thing. At his place, Maya took over, and Saki apologized for the noise. Yuta reassured her, then cooked dinner, while Maya joked about him becoming a husband. When he struggled with the recipe, Maya jumped in to help and asked Saki to stay on top of their studying. Then Maya hit him with it. Was there anything going on between him and Saki? Yuta said no, but Maya pointed out they weren't blood-related and hinted at someone special in Saki's life. Yuta shrugged it off, which only annoyed Maya more. She teased that a girl might have feelings for him, but Yuta stayed unfazed. She warned him to be careful. After Maya left, Yuta and Saki had dinner. Saki praised his cooking, and Yuta asked about her studies. She'd solved Maya's problems, but hated the methods. Yuta agreed and reassured her she'd do great on the exam. By Tuesday, Yuta was distracted at work, worried about Saki's exam results, and made mistakes with customers. Shiori noticed and asked if he was okay. Yuta suggested heading home. Back at his place, Yuta brought in the laundry after the rain, listening to weather reports. He thought about Saki, typed a message, then deleted it. Instead, he sent, "Where are you?" but got no reply. A memory of Saki telling him to trust her flashed in his mind, and he rushed out, grabbing 2 umbrellas to find her. He bumped into Saki in the elevator and apologized, explaining his worry since it was late and raining, and she had replied. Saki showed him her score of 94, frustrated that Yuta scored 96. Relieved, Yuta asked her not to scare him like that again. Saki explained that she had stopped shopping before coming home and wanted to thank him. Yuta insisted that he hadn't done anything special, but Saki disagreed, mentioning his help with music, literature, and cooking. She then asked if he only depended on older people, leaving Yuta wondering if she meant Shiori. Saki told Yuta that she thought Shiori was the only person he trusted. Yuta explained it was because they worked together, but Saki insisted he could trust her too. She asked if he would rely on her at home as a little sister might. Yuta agreed to let her pamper him, which made her happy. Yuta mentioned his earlier message, and Saki explained that her phone had died after listening to the music he had given her, easing his worries. Yuta rushed to work after class the next day, and Samura noticed. At the bookstore, Yuta was surprised to see Saki heading into the staff area. His supervisor told him that Saki was there for a job interview. Saki's emotions have been a tangled mess lately, starting on Thursday, July 16th. She realized she struggles with literature, a challenge she's never really faced before. Yuta, though, patiently explains it to her, offering a glimmer of hope. The next day, Friday the 17th, she's enjoying the music Yuta recommended, but then a troubling thought crosses her mind. What if he's with someone else? She writes about it in her diary, knowing it shouldn't matter but still feeling unsettled. By Saturday, July 18th, guilt nags at her for those thoughts. She wonders if she's overthinking things, especially since Yuta had been late, probably because of work. The idea of him with another person makes her uneasy, and she writes hatred in her diary, hating herself for feeling this way. That night, she had planned to greet him when he got home, but she fell asleep before he arrived. When she woke up, there was a blanket over her, and the small gesture comforts her. On Sunday, July 19th, Seki can't stop thinking about Shiori Yuri, Yuta's coworker. She finds her name beautiful and imagines Yuta with her as a couple. This thought makes her uneasy, but she pushes it aside, distracted by a bookstore job posting. It's not ideal, but Seki feels it's better to take her time rather than rush into anything. Still, the thought of applying at the bookstore where Yuta works feels odd. By Monday, July 20th, Seki is studying for her exam, feeling grateful to Yuta and Maya for their help. She goes to bed early, confident in her preparations and thankful for the dinner they shared. On Tuesday, the 21st, she passes her exam, feeling relieved and excited about summer and the new job. At the bookstore, a man asks if she's interested in the job, and she agrees without thinking. Now she's nervous about the interview but can't back out, unsure of why she even wants to work there. Saki regrets not telling Yuta about it earlier, especially when he comes home in the rain, clearly worried about her. She lies, blaming her phone's battery for not messaging him, but it only leaves her more confused about her feelings. She realizes deep down she's starting to like him, but is too scared to admit it. There's a word for it, but she hesitates to write it down in her diary. In the end, she reflects on how she feels like a character in a novel, overwhelmed by her emotions. She's relieved no one will read her diary, but the thought of writing it all down and hiding it lingers in her mind. Saki's thoughts go back to Thursday, the 16th of July, when she struggled with literature but was grateful for Yuta's help. On Friday, the 17th, she appreciates the music he recommended but feels uneasy about him being with others, especially when thinking of him and a pretty classmate. On Saturday, the 18th, she feels uncomfortable with him being late, even though he doesn't owe her an explanation. She falls asleep waiting for him, but feels happy when she wakes up to find a blanket over her. On Sunday, the 19th, Seki couldn't stop thinking about Yuta with Shiori, and it pissed her off. She applied for the bookstore job without giving a damn, even though it felt weird. On Monday, the 20th, she studied, feeling grateful for Yuta and Maya's help. By Tuesday, the 21st, she passed the exam, but the job interview still fucked with her mind, and she didn't bother telling Yuta why she even bothered. On Saturday, the 22nd, Yuta, Saki, Teichi, and Akiko had dinner. Teichi asked why they still use last names, but they didn't care, so they just kept it that way. Afterwards, Saki told Yuta she wasn't close with Maya and that Maya probably liked him more than she did. Yuta was fine with being alone. At work, Yuta helped her find a book, making her think he actually gave a damn. Saki roasted him about being clueless on fashion. On Sunday, the 23rd, Teichi fixed the Dan AC, and Yuta asked if Saki was still in her room. Akiko went on about how rough her summers were. Yuta ran into Maru, who asked if he was going to the pool with Saki and Maya, but he wasn't invited. After work, Saki admitted their whole summer was wasted on work. Yuta asked if Maya invited her to the pool, and she said he didn't need to come. He said he'd feel out of place, and she agreed, saying she wasn't going either. In a flashback, Yuta asked why Saki didn't tell him about the bookstore job. She said she was too embarrassed to get rejected. Finally, Saki realized she was just straight up jealous. Akiko walked down the street thinking about how she always known how to care for little Saki. The next morning, Yuta asked if she was going to her review session. She said yes and mentioned the AC had been fixed so Saki could finally study without overheating. Yuta asked if Saki got mad when people made plans for her without asking, and Akiko said she did. Yuta assured he wasn't planning to ask Saki out, but Akiko nudged him to take her somewhere fun to help her relax. She told him to make sure Saki took breaks, even if he had to push her. Yuta agreed, but worried Saki might hate him. Akiko said she'd back him up if that happened. Later, Yuta spoke to Saki about Maya and the pool. Saki brushed it off, saying she was too busy. Yuta, determined, asked for Maya's number, but Saki refused. She agreed to ask Maya and let him know. Yuta bumped into Shiori, who joked about fate, and they teased each other before seeing Saki smile from across the street. At work, everything felt normal but distant. Saki told Yuta she was going shopping and asked him to go home. Yuta remembered when Saki had told him not to expect anything from each other. At home, Yuta offered to make stir-fry since Saki always did so much for him. She agreed and gave him a microwaving tip. Yuta thanked her, and they talked about the pool. He said he didn't care about it, just wanted her to have fun. Saki seemed confused, and Yuta admitted he thought she might get jealous and join him. He apologized for telling Akiko about her love for the pool and reminded her how happy she had been making sweet and sour pork. Saki insisted she didn't have time and needed to study. Yuta pushed her more, and Saki snapped, saying she couldn't go. He expressed concern, telling her she was pushing herself too hard and needed rest. Saki stepped away to get coffee and told him she was studying, leaving him alone. Yuta noticed a note with Maya's number on the table. Saki lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling where light reflected like water, feeling lost. The next morning, August 25th, Saki dragged herself out of bed, still mentally stuck on everything. She barely greeted Yuta, and he immediately noticed she looked like crap. Saki mumbled she crashed at 6 a.m., and Yuta told her to sleep more since she didn't work until evening. She didn't give a damn and realized it was already late. She apologized for not making breakfast for their dad, but Yuta just waved it off, saying he'd already eaten. Saki sighed in relief, but Yuta could tell she was beat. He told her to just chill. Saki kept apologizing like a broken record and offered to cook, but Yuta got serious. He reminded her they agreed to stop being so damn formal. He wasn't having it and made her sit down while he cooked her crispy toast with ham, just how she liked it. While Yuta cooked, Saki surprised him by offering warm milk, even though it was boiling outside. He agreed, thinking it might help her knock out later. He handed her the toast and milk, and she actually smiled. Yuta was glad to see that, but before he could relax, she threw a curveball. "Let's hit the pool." Yuta blinked, surprised as hell, but kinda hyped. Saki quickly reminded him they had work that day. Yuta, still half asleep, had to ask what day it even was. She told him it was the day after tomorrow, and his brain finally kicked in. He suggested swapping shifts to go to the pool, and Saki hesitated. But Yuta reassured her it would work out, and she agreed, though still unsure. The next day, they walked together, and Saki apologized for being all moody after her run-in with Shiori. She asked if Yuta was dating her, and he shot it down, explaining they were just co-workers. Saki wasn't sure why she even asked, but still praised Shiori, calling her all kinds of compliments. She apologized again, thinking it might piss Yuta off, but he forgave her and told her to stop apologizing every damn time. Later, Saki listened to an old recording of a younger Yuta and Taichi at the beach. Yuta was whining about wishing their mom was there, and his dad reassured him they'd come back together one day. Saki couldn't help but notice how Yuta just gets her. All the messy bits, the complicated stuff. He appreciated the little things, like when he found the book she was looking for. It'd make her realize, yeah, she was into him, but damn, her own closed-off brain was blocking the way. The next day, when the air conditioner broke, Yuta brought up the pool, and Saki just brushed him off, feeling overwhelmed by her emotions. She admitted she was being a brat and felt like a damn kid. She started wondering if Yuta liked girls like Shiori, with long, perfect hair, unlike her own, which was just long. After dinner, Yuta went at it again with a pool talk, saying he just wanted her to have fun. Saki clung to her excuse of needing to study, but a memory hit her. The time her mom had wanted to take her to the beach, but Saki shot it down, thinking it was too much of a hassle. That memory finally made her realize she could actually go to the pool after all. On the bus, Saki remembered a childhood trip to the zoo with her mom. She'd fallen in love with the hippos, and as the sunlight danced on her hand, she felt a weird sense of peace. At the pool, she actually had a blast, and Yuta made it all better. He didn't seek attention, always working behind the scenes to make sure everyone had a good time. When he said he hated standing out in team games, Saki respected the hell out of him, seeing him as the backstage hero, the one who made everything run smoothly even if no one noticed. Yuta blushed, and for a moment, they both just enjoyed the quiet. Saki went back to swimming with Maya, but Yuta's eyes never left her. He couldn't shake the thought of how her energy lit up everything. As he recalled all the moments they'd shared, he realized he liked her. Confused as hell, especially since she was his stepsister. He couldn't ignore it. On the bus ride home, Yuta thought about his messed up views on relationships, thanks to his parents' broken marriage. He didn't know what was happening with his feelings for Saki, but he couldn't deny them anymore. Back home, Saki casually mentioned seeing him talk to Maya at the station. Yuta, caught off guard, tried to play it cool, explaining he was just thanking Maya for setting up the pool day. He admitted he had fun and thought Maya was awesome. Saki thanked him for caring about her friend. Yuta asked if Saki could chill for once, and she actually thanked him, gushing about how much she loved swimming and had a blast. Before he could say anything, fireworks went off, cutting him off. While watching, Seki praised him for being all thoughtful and always helping others. In her head, she wanted to say more, but chickened out and just called him her big brother instead. Yuta figured out that her admiration was all sibling love, but damn, his feelings were flipping into something else. Later, Yuta was all torn up inside, not knowing how to act at home now that his feelings were all over the place. Saki was no better, stuck wondering if Yuta liked her back and scared as hell about how everything would change if he just went for it. By Friday, August 28th, Saki decided to bury her feelings for good, not wanting to mess up the family vibe. She tossed the key to her diary into the river, hoping her emotions stayed locked up. Later, Yuta overslept and talked to Teichi, who told him it was fine to take it easy. Akiko thanked Yuta for taking Saki to the pool, even though it was Saki's friend who invited her. Akiko was just glad Yuta made sure Saki went. When Saki came home, Yuta almost choked on his coffee. She cut her damn hair. She thanked him and called him brother again. After reading her diary, Saki finally got that she was falling for him too. But instead of writing it down, she tossed the key to her diary away, locking up her emotions once and for all. Maya was bossing her classmates around for the upcoming cafe event, and after the meeting, Shinju tossed out the idea of karaoke. Everyone was in except Saki. She bailed, saying she had errands. Some classmate whined to Shinju about being unlucky since Saki wouldn't join. On the way home, Saki was lost in thought. A stepbrother can feel like a total stranger even though you're supposed to be family. She remembered some saying about step-siblings staying strangers forever. At home, she asked her mom, Akiko, about work, and Akiko told her to chill, no rush. Saki thought maybe it was about the parent-teacher meetings, and Akiko confirmed that, adding she didn't want to depend on just messages. Akiko asked about Yuta at school, but Saki said nothing new since they were in different classes. Akiko wondered if anyone at school knew they were siblings. Saki said no, they hadn't told anyone. Akiko then explained she was trying not to bug Teichi with attending both meetings since she couldn't take a bunch of time off from her small job. She didn't care if people figured out they were siblings, though. Yuta showed up, and Akiko greeted him. Saki finally called him brother. Akiko brought up the meetings again, mentioning Teichi was too swamped, so she figured she'd attend both. Yuta suggested if the meetings were on different days, they'd be fine, especially since no one at school knew they were siblings. He understood their dad was busy, and Akiko worked late, so it was a pain for her to go during the day. Before he could say more, Akiko dashed off to work, and Saki headed to her job. Later that night, Saki came back to find Yuta had cooked dinner. They both mentioned needing to talk about the meetings, and Saki couldn't help but laugh. Yuta felt some relief seeing her smile. After dinner, Yuta casually talked about not wanting anyone to know they were siblings for convenience, but he didn't care if they did. They agreed to schedule both meetings on the same day so Akiko wouldn't have to deal with it twice. Saki thanked him for dinner, and they cleaned up together. She kept trying to shut down her feelings for him, but those small things he did, they gave her a little hope. The next day, Yuta told Teichi about their decision to stop hiding their sibling relationship. Teichi asked if they were sure, and Yuta confirmed that they were both on the same page. Teichi nodded understanding and said Akiko would be thrilled. He added that Akiko wanted them to be a real family, which made Yuta silently agree, though it was still complicated for him. Saki walked in, greeted Teichi as dad, and apologized for not making breakfast. Teichi reassured her and told her to sit. Saki showed Yuta a message from their mom, who was happy about their decision. Yuta wondered if, one day, he might end up calling Akiko mom too. At school, Yuta told his friend Maru that he and Saki were actually siblings. Maru was stunned, finally piecing together all the strange conversations they'd had. He apologized for badmouthing Saki, but Yuta brushed it off. Maru admitted he thought Yuta had a thing for Saki, but Yuta shot that down quickly. Maru, relieved, was happy for them now that he knew the truth. In Seki's class, Maya was planning an outing. Seki said she was free that weekend and agreed to join a study session at Maya's house. Later, Yuta overheard Seki laughing, and it put a smile on his face. At work, Shiori teased Yuta, thinking he missed working with Saki. Yuta insisted his issues weren't about her, and Shiori invited him to her university's open house. Yuta just laughed it off. Later, Yuta helped Kei Fujinami, a girl from cram school who joked about her name. They chatted briefly, and then she left. At dinner, Teichi praised the meal, saying Yuta would love it. Seki left a note on the food she made for him. Later, as she overthought, she realized she kept doing things for Yuta, even though she wanted to pull away. It hit her hard and the thought depressed her. It felt like a weight on her chest. The teacher suggested Tsukinomiya Women's University, praising its affordability and strong reputation. She recommended Saki attend its open day. After the meeting, Akiko asked Saki about her plans, and Saki confirmed she'd go the next day. Akiko, clearly excited, also mentioned Yuta's potential for getting into a top university. The next day, Saki went to the university and bumped into Shiori, who offered to show her around. It wasn't long before Professor Kudo showed up, introducing himself. He noticed something was off with Saki and invited her to his office. There, he asked her straight up if she had romantic feelings for Yuta. Saki immediately denied it, saying Yuta was her brother, even if not by blood. Kumino reminded her that they'd only been siblings for 3 months. Saki, hesitating, admitted that she wasn't so sure about her feelings anymore. Yuta wrapped up his study session with Kaho, and the girls suggested they grab lunch together. Yuta agreed but brushed off whatever was brewing in his head. He wasn't in the mood to dive into whatever was bugging him. In the office, Kudo grilled Saki on the changes in her life over the past 3 months. Saki kept her mouth shut, and Kudo started laying it on thick, hinting that maybe her feelings were getting all twisted up. He mentioned how Shiori saw Saki as strong and independent, but pointed out that her fashion choices seemed like a way to scream, "Look at me." Saki just stayed quiet, letting Kudo run his mouth. He noticed that she took her appearance seriously, especially considering she was a high schooler at some prestigious university. Saki admitted she was trying to prove that she could be both smart and hot, even though she wasn't all in with her studies. She hoped going to a good school would open doors down the road. Kudo saw right through her, though, calling her out for using her looks as a shield for her soft spot. He suggested she was thirsty for love and approval, getting attached to anyone who gave her a little attention. Saki shot that down, but agreed she could open herself up more. Kudo told her straight, if her feelings for Yuta were real and didn't change, she should hold on to them, no matter how messy things got. Meanwhile, Yuta was munching on lunch with Kavo. She admitted she thought he was hitting on her at first, but now she knew he wasn't some creep. She casually mentioned she went to night school and spent her afternoons at the arcade. Yuta wasn't bothered by it, and honestly, he was kind of surprised by how chill she was. Kavo had this blunt honesty about her that was pretty refreshing. Later, Saki told Yuta about her visit to the university, mentioning some weird professor and Shiori. Yuta was shocked she was even thinking about going to such a high-level place. Saki said she was thinking about giving it a shot. Yuta told her he was sticking with the study hall, and that he had lunch plans with someone from the academy. Saki called him brother, and for a second, Yuta paused. He realized they were starting to build a bond that actually felt like siblings. Sure, they didn't always sync up, but this felt right. Saki headed off to her study session, but her mind was in a whirl. She used to just sit there, struggling to find answers in books and online, but now she had it. Asking for help wasn't some weak move. She realized it was all about the give and take. You couldn't be scared to lean on others and also be ready to help when it was your turn. But still, being real with someone she needed to work with was a whole mess she hadn't figured out yet. Later, Saki and Shinju hit up a store for snacks, chatting like nothing was up. Meanwhile, Yuta was lunching with Kaho, and she was sharp enough to sense something was off. Kaho asked Yuta if he was avoiding something, sensing the tension. Yuta just admitted it. He was caught up with someone he shouldn't have been feeling for. Kaho, not judging, got it. She said after class they can hang and let him sort his head out. Shinju, on the flip side, dropped his feelings on Saki like a bomb. She was caught completely off guard, thanked him for being real, but told him straight up it was a no-go. He pushed, asking if she was into someone else, but she was like, nah, it was just that a thing with him wouldn't work. Shinju was all apologetic, saying he wouldn't bring it up again. Saki's mind was racing, though, remembering something her teacher once said, if your feelings didn't change after getting close, those feelings were the real deal. Later, Yuta messaged Saki, telling her he was going to be late. Kavo dragged him to a rooftop where she spilled her own messy past. Her parents dying, people judging their relationship, how she almost gave up. She warned him that burying feelings just dug you deeper. Yuta admitted he couldn't just pretend it was nothing anymore. He couldn't forget. The next morning, Yuta was sitting with Saki at breakfast, bringing up how he saw her shopping with Shinju. She confirmed it. Then he asked about last night. Where the hell was she? Saki thought he was with Shiori, but Yuta corrected her. He was with someone else. Saki was caught off guard, but didn't make a big deal. Yuta said it helped him think, and now he wanted to try something new. Then he admitted he had feelings for her. Saki was stunned, called him a damn liar, but Yuta insisted he was serious. She asked if he was feeling all jealous and wanting to get touchy, and he admitted that was exactly it. Saki called him out, saying siblings felt that too, and maybe he was just tripping. Yuta nodded, but she wasn't totally convinced. Saki was all over the place, rambling, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Yuta tried comforting her, but she was too much in her head, so she ran off to her room. Yuta wasn't about to leave her in that mess, though. He knocked on the door, and when she came out, she hugged him. She thanked him for being bold, told him she was there for him if he needed comfort. They both agreed they needed to play it smart and not mess things up for their parents, but Saki admitted If she saw Yuta with other girls, she'd feel a stab of jealousy. Yuta laughed, admitting he felt the same when she was with Shinju. Saiki wasn't losing her mind over it, though, saying jealousy wasn't just for romantic stuff. It happened with siblings too. They agreed to keep their shit under wraps, acting like siblings to the world. But deep down, Saki's hands were shaking and she started crying, apologizing for not having her feelings straight. Yuta held her hands, telling her he had her. Together, they were gonna keep this bond safe, no matter how messed up it got. Seki was thinking about how just yesterday they were strangers and now they were walking side by side, their connection deeper than it had ever been.